So you can see the browning that's forming around here. That's now under all of that meat and fat and bone matter. So that's going to render down and then add more flavour when we add our water to our stock. Okay, so while we have our meat browning to get some caramelization on the bottom of the pan for the stock, I've chopped up the carrots and the onions that are going to go into that stock pot. Because our order came 4 weeks earlier than normal, than what we were anticipating, this is all that I have in my freezer to add to it, but I will add that. I also need to chop up some celery, so I'll just quickly do that as well. And then I'm moving on to the next part of our meal prep for the day. So the next thing that was going to take the longest to cook, that was going to be part of other meals, was the caramelized onion. So I don't know if you're able to read the list at the beginning of the video. It might have been a bit quick, but basically today I'm making beef teriyaki using the steak cuts. That's going to be a dump and go so that it can be put in the freezer for another day, but it's something that can be just thawed out in the freezer, in the fridge overnight, or on the counter a little bit during the day of, and then we're able to just cook that up and serve it with rice or noodles on the day. Then we're doing a braised rump. So that'll be something that I'm still deciding whether I'm going to make that as a dump and go, or if we're going to cook it up today, package it up into individual meals, and then have that so you can defrost it on the day later for one of our dinners or lunches. Then we're doing a traditional casserole. So that one I am going to cook up today. It's a slow cooker meal, and it is going to take quite some time to cook down, and we are going to package those into individual servings that we can just make some mashed potatoes or something on the day of. So that one we're definitely doing today in our slow cooker. And then we've got a gnocchi casserole. So that one's also a slow cooked dish that I will probably cook up today and make it so that it can then just be reheated almost like a pasta bake. So we'll put them into some foil pans that will then go in the oven on the day that we want to cook them, and then we can either serve it with some more pasta or potato or just vegetables. We're also doing a beef stroganoff, so that we're also going to do today. It is also a slow cooker recipe. I have 2 slow cookers, so what I'll probably do is some of those will be cooking throughout the day, and then when they're finished, I'm going to put some on to cook overnight and then package those ones up tomorrow morning so that the majority of the cooking is actually done today. So after the stroganoff, we have beef ribs. So the beef ribs is going to be a dump and go recipe. That one, we're just going to put all the ingredients. Usually what I do when I make the slow cooked beef ribs is I put all of the ingredients, including the rub, just into the slow cooker pan, and I just cook it on low all day. And then I add a little bit of flour to thicken up the sauce at the end, and cook some potatoes or carrots to serve with it. So we're going to make the ribs as a dump and go recipe. So it's just going to be in a vacuum sealed bag to go in the freezer raw. And then the day that we want to eat it, we will defrost it overnight in the fridge or on the counter for a few hours beforehand. And then we will just cook it overnight or during the day while we're at work, and we'll be able to have some fresh cooked barbecue ribs on the day. So that one will be a quick one to put together because we're just mixing all the ingredients and putting them into a bag. The beef bourguignon is probably going to be one of the slow cooked ones that we do overnight because it does take 24 hours to do beef bourguignon properly. We want to sear the meat. We want to prep all the different stages so that you get the most amount of flavor out of it. So that's probably going to be cooking tonight and into tomorrow. Then we are making a bolognese. So that's the same recipe that we made in a previous cook-up. We use a lot of that spaghetti sauce. So we've already pretty much been through everything that we made in that last cook-up. And this will be for the next month or so, but we're doing 4 times the recipe and then using some of that recipe to make lasagna. The lasagna is going to be put into the freezer raw, so it'll have to cook for like 40 minutes to an hour on the day after it is thawed, or a little bit longer if doing it from frozen. So we have to do the spaghetti sauce first because that's going to make up part of the ingredients for the lasagna. Then we're doing a brisket with onions, so that's a slow cooked meal as well. I'll have to double check which one I decided we were going to do overnight and tomorrow, or which we were doing today. And then lastly, Ben takes sandwiches to work, and there is a sandwich press at his work. So instead of just having boring cheese and tomato type meals, I'm going to make a ploughman steak sandwich that's going to have caramelized onions, roasted tomatoes, an onion gravy, and Swiss cheese on homemade bread. So we need to get the bread going, and I need to get the caramelized onions started for that. And caramelized onions take quite a while to cook, so I'm going to make quite a lot of them, and then we'll have some more in the fridge and the freezer to just defrost in smaller portions to add to pasta sauces or burgers or tacos or something if we want them in the future. Okay, so we took out some of our bones so that we can add in the others and allow them to start browning. Sorry if it's really loud. We do have some marrow pieces in there for the extra flavour. And we just want to get a decent browning on like all of these cuts of meat. So we can get as much flavour as possible into our stock. You can see all that browning at the bottom of the pan. So I'll let these fry off for another couple minutes, and then I will start adding all our vegetables and our water. Okay, so this is nearly finished browning. We've got our butter on for our caramelized onions. I'm going to still cut up a few more, but I'm going to start letting those cook down. I'll add some salt and we'll caramelize them the same way we did for our French onion soup. So I was just working some of those onions to the bottom of the pan, just to fry them off a little, get some golden browning on them. And then I will add the water and top that up. Just gonna stir this in to get that butter mixed through. I haven't added that salt yet, but I will do that shortly. Okay, so that's been browning now for a few moments, probably maybe 5 minutes total, and our onions are now looking like this after caramelizing in the beef drippings at the bottom. So now I can start adding our water. I did put in a bit of salt in there too to draw out some of the flavors. Okay, so I've added 500 ml so far of the 4.5 litres, and then we'll see if it covers the meat. If it doesn't, I might add some more. That's 4.5 litres, so I'm just gonna push this meat down because that's covering it pretty well. And you can already see that really nice colour from all that browning we did. So I'm just gonna leave this on a low heat for probably the next half an hour or so, because I then have to pop out, but I'll leave it covered. And then I might turn it on again for another hour or so when I get back. Okay, so now I have the stock just simmering. The caramelized onions are slowly also simmering away. So now I need to put on our first loaf of bread. The first thing we have to do is put in this little paddle. I forgot to do that once and then put all the ingredients in, and it was quite a mess to try and get it in there properly. So we do our bread baking with a Breville bread maker. So it is a machine. We haven't actually made any of our bread in the oven yet. Our oven is really old. It lacks a seal and needs replacing. So we have not yet tried to do our bread in the oven. The Breville kitchen bread mixer or bread oven that we've got, it's about 20 years old. So we are in the process of looking for a new one as well. This one has been in our family for a really long time. And we have recently really ramped up our bread making since we've started culling habits. So we were purchasing about $10 to $15 worth of bread every week, and now we have switched to just baking our own, and we've found that it actually defrosts and like freezes and defrosts really, really well. So sorry, I'm just doing two things at once, 1¼ cup. So yeah, we found that it bakes up really nice. It defrosts after being frozen really nice. It's still soft and fluffy. So we've started really ramping up our own bread baking. So we had purchased 13 kilos? 13 kilos. That seems a bit of an odd number. 5 kilos. It was $13, I believe. 5 kilos of bread flour from the supermarket while we were there, and have been working our way through that. It's got a really, really nice recipe on the back of it that we've found has worked the best of all the recipes we've tried so far. So it's got a 1 1/4 cup of lukewarm water, and then we have 2 teaspoons of olive oil. We put the wet ingredients in first because it is a mixer, a bread maker, as opposed to us doing the work. Then it is 4 cups of the bread flour. So this brand is called Defiance, and that's just from the local supermarket in Australia. But we did recently just go to Costco and purchased 25 kilos for, I think it was $23. So considering we'd get about 25 kilos, 50 bread loaves out of that, and it cost $23 plus like a little bit of yeast. It ends up being way more economical for us, and it's going to last a really long time. So this is a 1/2 cup measure, so that's 2 cups so far. I'm going to start losing track if I talk at the same time. 2 1/2. 3. 3 1/2. And then 4. So we did also notice when we went to the supermarket that I had been getting the packeted yeast that comes in like the 7-gram bags, and it was significantly, like 8 times more expensive than if I had gotten just the bulk version that you leave in a resealable container in the fridge. So this is my last packet, and then we went and bought the cheaper yeast because we're going to be baking a lot more loaves. We'll probably bake like 3 or 4 loaves of bread on a weekend, and then freeze some of them, leave 1 fresh, 1 or we might even do 2 worth to turn into these ploughman sandwiches. So Ben's got stuff for work as well for lunches. So we've put in our flour, our water, our yeast, our oil. We need sugar. I need bread improver. So the bread improver that we have at home is the Wallaby brand. Oh, it's the Lork brand actually. So we'll put in some bread improver as well. And then the last thing is to warm up 1 1/4 teaspoons of butter in the microwave, and then chuck that in, and then we just put it into the machine on the largest loaf setting. We do a medium to dark crust, and then just a basic white bread is what its setting is on. Okay, so because I have to pop out soon, I have a meeting for another project that we're working on. So I'm just trying to get one of these slow cooker meals started, but I didn't have enough room on the stove. So I've just removed the caramelizing onions from the stove so that I can brown my blade steak. So I want to get these nicely browned for about 4 minutes. And this is for the slow cooked beef stroganoff. So I'm just going to get that started. So we're going to brown the beef, caramelize the onion a little bit, or I might just steal some of the caramelized onions that were in here. And then we're going to pop them in the slow cooker and add some beef broth into the slow cooker and just leave them to stew on low for about 8 hours before we finish them off with some sour cream and some garlic and mushrooms and just some little add-ons like that. Okay, so our meat is browning. I've added some butter in. That's about 1 tablespoon of butter. That's going to get those nice flavors off the bottom of the pan. And then I'm going to use 1 onion's worth of our caramelized onions and pop that all into the stock pot, into the slow cooker with the 1 liter of beef broth and some flour, or I might just leave it with the beef broth in there and add the flour a little bit later. Okay, so I've been to where I needed to go to get my things for my meeting. So now I've got about half an hour or 40 minutes to get prepping these next steps before I have to have my meeting. So I've turned my caramelized onions back on. They're back to slowly caramelizing. The stroganoff is cooking away in our slow cooker. I've just put some olive oil into this Dutch oven and I'm going to bring that up to temperature so I can sear and brown these round steaks. And we're going to start the process of doing the traditional beef casserole. So while that's coming to temperature, I will start chopping up some of the vegetables that need to go in. Okay, so by the time I get these onions chopped, we should be ready to brown that beef in the oil that is currently heating up. So I'm just going to roughly cut these because we want a rustic stew basically. And these are really, really large carrots. Then we also need the 2 celery sprigs as well. We need 1 medium onion and then some herbs and bay leaves and stuff like that to chuck in there. So this is our second slow cooker meal. So I'm starting it off in the pan to get that nice browning and flavor. And then we'll pop that in our second slow cooker. Our first slow cooker has been going for about an hour, so it still has about 7 hours to go. Okay, so we've got our round steaks ready to go. And our oil should be nice and hot now. Browning. While that's browning, I'm going to chop up the celery and the onion and get the other ingredients ready for this. Alright, so I've diced up or chopped up the chunky pieces of vegetables that are going to go into the stew that we're currently starting. So while I'm waiting for that to brown and our caramelized onions to keep going, I'm going to do some of our dump and go throw together meals. So
we're starting out with the teriyaki beef. We're going to use a sirloin steak for this, and it is May 2026. And then the other one that we're going to do is a barbecue beef rib, slow cook 8 hours, then add 1 tablespoon of flour, and it is May 2026. So I've just put some light instructions on there for anybody that does cook it, that doesn't usually cook, because it's so easy to cook, that they can then just chuck it into the slow cooker and know that they just add a tablespoon of flour at the end and mix it in to thicken up. So starting with our teriyaki beef, that one is a pretty simple recipe. It's just a dump and go. Okay, so our spaghetti sauce, which we made in our last big cook up video, is currently cooking. We also have the bread has come out of the bread maker, so it's now cooling. Once it's cooled, we will start doing the ploughman sandwiches, but I do need to still roast the tomatoes for that. But we want to make sure that our bread is entirely cooled before we cut into it, as it does continue to cook with the steaming process. So that's the stage that it's currently at. Whoa. So now I am just getting our beef, the ribs, the dump and go barbecue beef rib. So that's going to be one that we can just put into our slow cooker and have it cook over about an 8-hour period or so, after it's defrosted a little bit in the fridge for probably about a day or so. So I'll just get these ribs out of here. I think we've got about 4 or so ribs in here. It's approximately 1.3 kilos worth. And so far it is a bag within a bag within a bag within a bag. All right, finally got there. So I'm gonna put our meat into our freezer bag. Wash up my hands a little bit because they're a little bit covered in blood. Okay, so now I'm just going to throw all the ingredients in, and then on the day we will either thaw it out for a few hours prior, or we will thaw it out in the fridge for a day or so. So we need, I'm just going to grab we have confit garlic that is in our fridge. So I'm going to pop some of our confit garlic in there. Just going to crush it up on the side of the jar first because it's currently in whole cloves. So that's about 3 or 4 cloves there. Trying not to have it touch the bag or the meat. Okay. Then we need brown sugar. About 1.5 tablespoons of brown sugar. I'm going to put in some of our caramelized onions. It does call for onion powder, but I don't really like putting the powders in unless they're homemade. And we don't have any at the moment, so I'm going to pop in about 1.5 tablespoons of the caramelized onions that we've just made. Then I need about 1 teaspoon of cumin. It does say cumin powder. We're out of cumin powder at the moment. I could grind them up, but I'm just going to put in some cumin seeds. Then we need 3 teaspoons of paprika. It's got to be a better way to measure this out, hey? Take the lid off. Okay. Some salt and pepper. Now, our family is not real big on pepper flavor, so I'm not going to put too much pepper in there. Okay. All right, got this sitting slightly more upright. Gonna grab our measuring cup again. And I'm gonna grab 2/3 of a cup of apple cider vinegar. Two cups of tomato sauce. Everything that I've purchased from Costco is kind of what we're using today, and all of it's not open, and I'm struggling to get these open. Okay, 2 cups of tomato sauce. About 1.5 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. And it does call for about 3 cups of water as well. It is up to you whether you want to add that in now or when you go to cook it on the day. Because I don't know if I'm going to cook this or if someone else is going to cook this on the day,
I'm going to put the water in here as well, so it's all ready to go to chuck into our slow cooker. And I'm also going to pop in a teaspoon of mustard as well. All right, so we have the spaghetti sauce over here slowly cooking down. I have 2 of our slow cookers on. The beef stock is finished. Our bread is cooling down. Our 2 dump and goes are now in the freezer. Our caramelized onions are finished. So now I have just roasted or slow cooked in the fry pan some chopped up tomatoes, and now I've popped some butter, some oil and some garlic in this pan, and I'm going to slowly cook 4 beef sirloin steaks that I will then finely slice and put into the ploughman sandwiches with Swiss cheese, the roasted tomatoes and our caramelized onions. All right, our what were they? Sirloin steaks have been on a medium heat so they could caramelize and get some good color. Just turn them over, going to give them a couple more minutes to caramelize, and then I'll turn it down for a little bit and baste them. And then I'm going to slice them up and start making the sandwiches. Okay, so I don't really have a recipe for this as such. It's just our take on a ploughman's sandwich with what we like in our taste. So this is like a gravy that I made with the drippings from the butter and garlic from cooking the steaks. So I'm just gonna pop that on. And on the other side, I'm gonna do our caramelized onion. And I'm gonna do some of these with a garlic aioli and some without. Grab some of our roasted tomatoes. And then when Ben goes to work, he's able to just pop this in their sandwich press with a bit of butter. And it's all good to go. So, got a few strips of our meat here. And then I've made them a smaller, like half sandwich, just so that they fit into the bags easier, and he can decide if he wants to do just a sandwich or a sandwich and soup or 2 sandwiches. And that's that one all ready to go. So we have enough bread probably to do about 12 sandwiches. So I'm just gonna crack on making those. And then I've also packaged up 3 bags of caramelized onions for when we might need them later. All right, so we got 7 sandwiches ready to freeze and 1 ready for me to eat now.